My name is Bruce Barkhauer, and I have the privilege of serving as the Director of the Center for Faith and Giving for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. And a real privilege for me to be with you to talk about money and whether or not your money is making you sick, and obviously, what can we do about that? This is an important conversation for the church. The Bible talks a lot about money. In fact, in over 2,500 verses, money or derivatives and antecedents of money are spoken of: wealth, power, ownership, management, etc. So it's a topic that the biblical witness is familiar with, and one that's obviously important enough for us to discuss. When we're thinking about wellness around our finances, we're going to talk a little bit about budgeting, so it's probably good to remind ourselves that even Jesus tells a budgeting parable, if you will. When he sets out in Luke's 14th chapter, he sets out to tell a story of who would begin to build a tower without first assessing the cost to see if he can complete it. As the Second Testament opens up and expands relative to church leadership, Titus and Timothy both list being a good manager of money as a part of what is required for leadership to be a deacon or an elder in the early church. And of course, Paul reminds us that we are ambassadors for Jesus Christ, that our behavior reflects upon our Savior. So we don't want to be the kind of folks who have a reputation of bad debt, who can't be counted on to keep our promises and agreements about anything, and especially about money. So there's a scriptural undergirding to this conversation I just want to remind us of, and you can look for more of those texts and ideas on your own. What I want to talk about initially is our feelings about money, and looking at where do they come from. And my guess is that for most of you, as for myself, my feelings about money developed very early in my life. I didn't realize it until I took the time to do what's called a financial autobiography. And we don't have time to walk through what one of those is tonight in detail, but I want to refer you to Google as one place you can look up financial autobiography and find a number of tools there that would be helpful for you to do this exercise. I think it's key to understanding our feelings about money. Does money bring up shame or anger or guilt? Does it? What are the things we associate with money? And likely we'll discover that many of these things were written into our story early on about the way money was talked about in our own home. It may be that we have a sense of guilt or shame about not knowing how to deal with money, not knowing how to manage it. And doing a financial autobiography may gain some insight for you that, well, these were skills you were never taught. You didn't get them at the kitchen table in your home, and they weren't offered in your high school or college education. And so you're beating yourself up for not having a skill that you never learned. So a financial autobiography is extremely important for you. The bottom line is we don't want you punishing yourself for past mistakes. That's not going to fix them or change them. The question is, what did we learn about money? What did we know about money? How did we learn it? When did we learn it? When were those feelings imprinted on us? And to acknowledge that and then move on to thinking about what's next. Now that I understand this, how do I get better control over this in my life? I was raised in a household where money was talked about. There are some negative pieces to that, but there are some very positive ones. My father, Ken Barkhauer, sat both my brother and I down when we were in high school, so at different points in his parenting, to teach us what he considered the most important 10 economic rules for living our life. And so I call it the Ken Barkhauer School of Economics. It's the one I went to, and it's really helpful. And if you read any of the folks who make a lot of money telling people how to budget and how to manage their money, these are the principles that they all teach. So I think they kind of stole them from my father. Dad's first rule was don't spend more than you make. That seems pretty obvious, but if you don't have a sense of what you make, it's pretty easy to spend past that. So it's important to know what you have available. Dad's next rule was don't spend all that you make. Logical that you should save, that you should put some money aside for various things. He used to say, pay yourself first. Now, I would amend this third point to an A and a B. The A would be that you need to practice some generosity according to your capacity, that you need to be able to give some money away, which is an immediate sense then of having power and control over your money instead of the other way around. And then you need to be able to save some money. How much do you need to save? Well, you need to build a budget. I said earlier, you need to know what you have, and you also need to know what you owe. So you list all of your income from all of the various sources it might come from. You list all of your expenses, including the ones you don't think about that appear automatically on charge cards or ATF statements, and get a real sense of the plus and the minus at the end of the month of what you really have and what you really owe. That begins to help you understand what do you need to do in terms of getting things in balance. How far out of whack are you, if that's a red number, if you will, in parentheses at the end of the month, that there wasn't enough money to meet all of the obligations you have. And if you're doing better than that, if you're in what we used to say the black, if you're in positive territory at the end of the month, then how are you directing that money and allowing it to work for you? But you can't get there until you do that budgeting exercise. And one of the things we recommend in that exercise is sort of a subset of budgeting, which is to list all of your major expenses that don't come due monthly. They may come due every 6 months or every year, like auto insurance or homeowners insurance or taxes. They may be quarterly, they may be a half year, they may be at the end of the year. But to be able to recognize that a part of your budgeting process is you need to carve out of each check, out of each pay period, money planning ahead so that you have it when that expense comes due. You're accruing money for that time. So if you have a $1,200 bill at the end of every year that's related to insurance or some other thing, you're taking $100 out of each pay period if you're paid monthly, so that when you get to the end of that cycle, the money's there and you don't have to scramble and look for it. If you're a clergy doing self-employment taxes, this is really important that you're doing this out of every check so that quarterly you're able to make those quarterly tax payments and not suddenly be scrambling for money and throwing other parts of your system out of whack. My father used to say you should balance your checkbook to the penny every month. Well, I don't even know who keeps a checkbook and a ledger anymore. Everything's a swipe and a tap and done online. So that means we need to be reviewing our electronic fund transfer statements that we get from the bank and our credit card statements. It's important not only to be looking for fraud or mistakes, but also to be constantly managing lots of little things that we've agreed to at some point, a $5 a month or $1 a month or $12 a month service fee for something that we may not even be using anymore, may be obsolete to us or no longer necessary or not appropriate, or one of the places where we can cut back if we need to find money, if you will, at the end of each month. So reviewing those statements on a regular basis does all of those things for us and allows us to know exactly where we are. You need to set priorities, and you should do this together as a couple, if you have a partner. That you should be looking at where do we want to be? What are our long-term goals? Not just in the moment, we're making our bills every month, isn't that wonderful? But what long-term goals do we have? Do we want to travel? Do we want to buy a major luxury purchase, if you will, a boat or a cabin in the woods someplace for when we retire, that we can have a place to seasonally live our lives, whatever that might be. What are those long-term objectives? And to talk about those and to begin now planning for those. Now my father always said, don't pay interest. Well, that's pretty much unavoidable most of the time. Most of us are not in the situation my dad was in, where he paid cash for every automobile. We were not rich by any means. We were solidly middle class, but Dad was such a saver and such a planner that every month he paid himself into a savings account what a car payment would be, and at the end of 4 years he would sell his car on his own, because you'd usually do better doing that rather than trading it in, and then he had enough money to pay cash for the remainder of that. We're probably not in that situation. It would be great to be, and to make that a goal of some place we could be in our lives. But the idea is that you're going to pay interest on a few things, big purchases, your mortgage and an automobile, but there are other things for which you shouldn't be paying interest. And if somebody wants to lend you money for free, be careful of that, but it's always been my policy to take free money if it's offered, if it's for something I need, and I have the means to make whatever the required payments are so I don't miss one, because that's how those free interest things usually work, is if you're an hour late, even if it's the 23rd of 24 payments, that the interest now accrues from the beginning and you owe it all. You've got to be careful with those deals. But you know, if the Mattress Warehouse wants to give you the free money and you can make those payments every month, and you can borrow their money at no cost, then I don't think that's a terrible thing to do. But you've got to be really careful. You also should be planning for emergencies. Ideally, you would have a savings of somewhere between 90 to 120 days, that if you lost all your income, you would be able to meet your basic urgent expenses, your mortgage, your car payment, your insurance, be able to eat, etc. I mentioned already that you should be kind of looking ahead and planning for retirement. So you should be looking for ways to carve out even a little bit of money to invest, or to at least save well, so that you'll have money later on in life when you lose the capacity to earn money at the rate you're earning it now. One other thing my father always said was, don't pay full price for anything. And he made sort of a game of negotiating everything. He would even negotiate over 50 cents for a watermelon with a produce guy. Now, I'm not suggesting you should take it to that extreme, but on any major purchase, any substantial purchase, I would not accept the list price or even the sale price as the final price. You don't lose anything by asking if they can take another 10% or $100 or something off on the deal, because that's money that you can spend and use that you don't necessarily have to give them, and the worst they can say is no. Now, the last thing that's really important, as I said earlier, that you're doing all of this together as a couple with your partner. And the reasons for that are not only your common goal setting and trying to have an achievement together relative to how your money is working for you, but no one person should be tasked with the responsibility of managing the household finances. That's just not fair, because they're then often the ones put in the position to have to say no to the other partner. No, that's not in our budget. No, we can't afford that. No, not if we want to go to Cancun in 5 years. We can't buy that now. We can't do that now. One person shouldn't be responsible for that alone. So every month you should be working together to assess where you are, where you're going, what you need, and whether or not you need to hold back on a few things, or maybe you can splurge and go out for a nice dinner. But you make those decisions together, and you hold each other then mutually accountable in an equal partnership. I just think that's really important. So you're saying, well, now, Bruce, I don't have enough money to pay all my bills now. How can I save for retirement and save for emergencies and just save in general? Well, there's the reality that when it comes down to it, our our decisions about money are just that, they're choices. And so we need to look very carefully at what we have and what we owe and what we don't need to be spending money on, and to begin to look for what I call $5 victories. You're saying, I mean, right now your outgo is bigger than your income. What are you to do about that? Well, take a look at how you're spending daily. You know, if you were going on a diet, this is one of those sort of pain in the hiney things they make you do, is to write down everything you eat and calculate all the calories for that. Well, sometimes you just say, well, the heck with it, I'm not going to eat the donut because I don't want to write it down. That may happen on the budgeting side, but more likely you're still going to buy the Starbucks, but write it down and be accountable for the $5 and $10 and $2.50 purchases over a period of time, and see where your money's going. And begin to look for what I call these $5 and $10 victories. So you realize that you're spending maybe $30 a month in specialty coffees and donuts, and you really don't need to do that. Or you're buying your lunch out several days a week, when carrying your lunch even one day a week could save you $10 or $12. So you're looking for these to start to accumulate those. You know, if you get $5 a week you don't spend on coffee, that's $20 at the end of the month, right? That's $240 at the end of the year that you have saved. The big thing, of course, is to be putting that money really aside so that you're really saving it. And many folks, if they really work at it, can find $100 or even $200 a month on money that they just didn't realize that they were sort of not controlling. And that can make a huge difference in accumulating some savings. It can also make a difference then in your strategy if you have credit card debt or other debt, how you manage that debt and pay that off. That, of course, is one of our goals if we have debt. And it's important to decide, and you learn this in part with your financial autobiography, what do I need? Do I do better if I have a quick victory? Or do I do better if I have a long-term goal and have something to work toward and celebrate? That's a part of the strategy of how you want to manage debt. Do I want to pay off my highest interest rate credit card first, so I'm paying less interest every month, even if that's the bigger number, but that's the one I want to work on? Or do I want to take the smallest balance on one card and get it paid down and celebrate that victory, and then set that card aside so you don't start charging up on it again? There are good strategies for debt management, and I recommend that you look for those resources that are available. Again, it's a simple Google process, and it might be that you need the help of a money manager and a financial advisor, and that's not a bad thing. It's usually worth the money if you can find someone you trust, someone who has a reputation, who your friends can recommend to you, to help you develop this long-term strategy for savings, debt management, and how to get control of this aspect of your life. What I want you to know is that if you get control of this, if you become the one who controls your money instead of your money controlling you, you are going to be healthier. You are not going to wake up in that cold sweat at 3 o'clock in the morning worried about how you're going to make your bills and how things are going in your life on the financial side. And that's going to bring a sense of peace into your family and your household. And it's going to have you think about how you spend and manage money on a daily basis, asking yourself the question, do I need this? How does this fit into the plan? How does this move me, move my family to where we want to be? At the end of the day, though, what we're really driving at here is that to be healthy around your finances is about planning. It's about good choices. It's about informed decisions. It's about understanding that what you do now impacts not only the moment you're in, but your future. And if you want less stress about your finances, then you need to talk about them as a family. You need to manage them, not let them manage you. Seek out professional help if you need it. Remember to set those goals, develop a plan, do a budget, and take action. And understand your own history as to why it is that maybe you're an impulse buyer, or maybe why you're really resistant in spending money. That financial autobiography can be really helpful, and when you look at yours and your partners, you'll see maybe why it is you've had some conflict around money issues, because the story and early imprints are very different. And expect, my friends, that you're going to fail at this sometimes. Hopefully not spectacularly, hopefully not going down in flames, but you're going to fail. So be kind to yourself and get yourself back on track. I go in and out of managing these tools that my father gave me some 45 or 50 years ago. But when I'm keeping up with them, when I'm doing them, I really do have a healthier outlook on life. My blood pressure really does go down. And when I step outside of those and screw up, I can say, yeah, I know what I did, and I know what I need to do now to get back on track. Make good choices, and I promise you, your financial health will be better, and your personal health will be better, and your spiritual life will be better. Thanks for this time, and feel free to contact me if you have more questions about anything that we've talked about today.